water in there. Of course, this chair will be completely soaking wet. Oh. I didn't get much sleep last night. I had to rain really came down here, thunderstorm, rain, and it built up on top. In a way it had never done so before. It started leaking through. There must have been well, the air conditioner used to leak 6 gallons a day, fill up a 2-gallon bucket. That's just from the air conditioning. I fixed that, but it never leaked when it rained. And leaked last night. Must have leaked 10 or 12 gallons, but I covered all my stuff up. By the way, damage report, USB bus on Betty need to monitor that with software. It's intermittent, and Hal is a trooper. Although he's sick, he came through it. Blizzy is thousands of miles away from here. I never thought of that until this morning. It was kind of sad. Blizzy was a good friend of mine for years. Like Mr. Spock in that movie. Unless we do whatever until such time, they had to get out of the Tholian web or something by a certain time, and he's like, unless we do this by a certain time, we shall never see home again. And I realized last night I'll never see Blizzy again, ever. Well, this will upload through Blizzy. You did a good job, Blizzy. You're still doing a good job. Keep it up. Wish I could harvest your RAM and hard disk, but that ain't never gonna happen. This is something I tried to send a guy. He's a preacher. I just learned. I watched a blues jam he did. He's a Methodist preacher. For a preacher, he's a cocky bastard sometimes. He's like me. He's a rebel. But I tried to send him this playlist. It's Peter Gabriel, Last Temptation of Christ, and it's engineers and producers, both artistically and technically, consider this a masterwork. It really is. It's just incredible, not only in its vision, but in its performance and quality and everything. Last Temptation of Christ, Peter Gabriel, based on Cousins, I guess. And it's not an anti-Jesus movie. It's just pondering the eternal conflict all people go through using Jesus as a vehicle, which pisses some people off. Up all night fighting water. Had to get up on the roof a couple hours before dawn and sweep all the water off. And I didn't realize how weak my left side of my body is. That was tough. Then it's now the air conditioner still, the exchange system is wet. It's still blowing it out. On high it even bogs down, but it must be nearly 100% humidity in there. That's why I'm out here. And like 100 degrees at least. I've been in some real deals before, you know, that's the thing. I'm not, I'm determined. I once walked without taking a ride 500 miles between two towns in the south. It took several days. I needed to clear my head, I guess. Didn't take, nobody really offered a ride, and I didn't. At the end, a guy offered me, and I said, no, I've gone this far, I'll go alone. I'll finish it, you know. Then when I was a young kid, I needed a car, and nobody would really help me, and I carried about 100 pounds of tools and an extra battery over to a junkyard, and slept on the ground for several days, 4 or 5 days, next to that car, and totally rebuilt everything on it. Rebuilt the car, rebuilt the electronic system, wired it direct. My sister would remember that little Mustang. Man, it felt good. I walked over there. It's about probably at least 12, 15 miles, carrying 100 pounds of tools and an extra car battery. I'd just seen the Road Warrior, so I was all hip to, you know, a year before I thought I was the Road Warrior. Had on a black leather jacket. It was fall. But I slept over there several days. It felt good when I got it running. The gasoline, the juice. I found some gas and other tanks and drained them into a 1-gallon jug and had enough to drive out of there. That felt good after several days. I didn't think I was going to pull it off for a bit. I knew I could. The point is, I'm real determined. There's not much I can't fix, but now I'm old and sick, and there's a lot I don't want to fix. Hell needs to be totally taken apart. I saw the video on how to do it yesterday. I was like, you know, black tape is working for 3 or 4 weeks at a time just fine now. But it's tough sitting in there. It's tough sitting in there in that heat with the 100% almost humidity. Boy, I was worried about Betty last night. She got just a little bit of dampness and the USB bus wouldn't work. And I don't have a ADB to USB adapter or FireWire to USB adapter or FireWire for the mouse or keyboard to work. You know, they're US Universal Serial Bus. But I figured, well, it's intermittent. It dried out, but how frustrating. Anyway, my point is, I've been through a lot. Maybe the most wicked thing I ever did. What the hell? Probably the most wicked thing I ever did. I survived 36 hours in the desert between Los Angeles and Las Vegas on the hottest day on record. And the car I was in, a brand new car I just bought, and I went to Las Vegas to set up. In Nevada, you can set up LLC, limited liability corporations, and I needed a few more to funnel taxes in and out in a certain way and basically get a big advantage. And just also, you can, when you go into like a store, the tax rate is $82.50 per thousand in Los Angeles. So I could go into a store and show them my certificate, interstate commerce certificate, and not say I was buying a $10,000 mixer or a bunch of guitars or something, and you save $825 right there. $82.50 per thousand, yeah. Anything 1,000 and over, I'd take my commerce or interstate commerce certificate and say, well, I'm based out of Las Vegas doing interstate commerce, amigo. If you read the fine print, it's not cheating or stealing. That's just every shit. 3M, Exxon, Mobil, probably Google. I had to investigate. I imagine they don't pay taxes. None of the major corporations do. They put it on the back of the average guy because that's one thing I learned in business is it's like Bank of America at one point wouldn't even give me an account, and I got one. Finally, I did get one. I like them because they're the biggest, really. And but at one point I said, well, man, they have their mailing list, the mailing list of every studio owner in the United States, phone number and address, so I can send them my snail mail materials back then would be great. And I approached them about it, and oh no, we can't possibly do that. No sir, we do not disclose our clients' information. Well, the first year I put a couple of $1,000,000 went through my account. I got a nice little package from Bank of America, one of their marketing companies that dummy corps they run, and offering me all of their clients. They're not giving you their bank account number, but you get their address, phone number, everything for your mailing list, snail mail and email back then. I didn't do that then, but it's funny what little money will do. Suddenly they were just all more than happy. I bought it many times, $1 a name, but it's well worth it, because every dollar spent on advertising would return me between $10 and $100 in profit. So man, when I was up there last night, I just couldn't believe I realized what an impossible situation this is. I'm not doing well. It's wet. It's like, if you ever camped out where you're really super uncomfortable, it's always too hot or too cold, everything's inconvenient. That's kind of what this is like, except, expand that out now for 5 years. I've gotten used to it. The first couple of years were living in a nightmare. If you think you're going to get an RV and avoid rent, you're not. You're going to live free, you're not. It costs every bit as much as an apartment to live here. And you got to park and plug in, or it's a total nightmare. I spent about at least a year on the streets of Los Angeles, and you have to hide out so cops don't see you, and because they'll hassle you, even though it's totally legal where I was doing it. But with the windows all up and the drapes closed, and 120 degrees inside there, and then freezing at night, hiding out. One night in Santa Monica, I had got the permits, and at that time I was with Diane again 25 years later or whatever. 20, stupidest thing I ever did. But is that sucker even on? Yeah, I was with her, and she had a super nice apartment in like the rich folks section, and I was staying with her off and on. And I bought all the permits to park on the street, oversized permits to park on the street in Santa Monica. This is how much they hate your fucking guts when you have an RV, everybody. There's a real prejudice against people who have RVs, because I guess some of them are just homeless scumbags. Then there's, people like me who are wandering artists and derelicts. Big difference, I guess, huh? And anyway, it's 3 in the morning. I had legally parked with all the permits. Bang, 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 bang. Cops come knocking on the door, and the one tried to pry the window open. They were determined. They just hated RVers so much. They hated the idea that somebody was parking in Santa Monica and getting away in that exclusive neighborhood for free or something. And they went on pounding. If I'd have opened the door, see, the Supreme Court did a thing where you're sort of in your home in an RV, so it's a transitional thing. It's considered between home and in a car. It has more privacy rights in a car and less than home. And it could be, if you're parked and on jacks, you're home and have all the rights. So anyway, I'll do this for a while. It's fun anyway. A total nightmare disaster if you're not ready to fight. But yeah, they knocked on and pounded with their flashlights, dented it all around, went all around. They were just sure I was in there, and I had at that time, several years ago, been drinking beer, and there were beer cans all over the floor. It was 3 in the morning. They would have beat the shit out of me, which they always do in LA. They beat your ass up to let you know who's boss. So I kept the door locked. I'm like, I've been drinking. It's 3 in the fucking morning. They got no right. And they pounded and pounded and pounded. Come out of there. Dented it up. The female cop tried to pry my window open, damaged it. They were going to break in, and I just thought, what hatred these people have, what prejudice and hatred. I was legally parked with all the permits and well within my right. And if I'd opened that door, it would have been instant arrest and beating and jail and everything, And that was when they got hard up. When the economy went down, I'd look off of the balcony in the apartment where Diane and I lived, and I started seeing a whole lot more police activity. And I was like, mental note, these guys have been given instructions to save their own jobs and asses by making more arrests because the economy's bad. And they were making a lot more arrests for no reason all of a sudden. And, some people go, well, they don't do that now. Yes, they do. They do. I mean, that's one thing in business. It gives you an overview of things where you're like, it's just like Google. They're doing so much illegal shit and coding things and diverting business from one company that buys into their little mob thing to another. Say, for instance, that I don't know if Walmart's associated with them or not, but say, unless Walmart advertises with them, every time you Google you need to buy a freaking hammer, you're not going to get Walmart because they're trying to blackmail Walmart to advertise or advertise more. They're doing all kinds of stuff like that. And we're in the infancy of computers. Most people aren't hip to this, but as people grow up with computers and, understand this more, most of the stuff they're doing will be outlawed, considered illegal, fraud, shill advertising, just the lies and the phoniness stack up. But all you have to do is look at money. When big money's involved, and I've been in it, it's happened to me. All of a sudden, when I owned a multi-million-dollar business, the doors were flung open for me to circumvent all the rules of everything, and just, at the Hollywood Association of Recording Professionals one night, I went to the HARP meeting. When ADATs and digital home studios first came out, we were all trying to have them outlawed. And one guy stood up at the meeting, and he was a well-known studio owner, mega studio, huge movies and music. That was before I was involved in anything like that, really, as much, And he stood up at the HARP meeting. He said, being a business owner is a whole lot like being a criminal. And he hit it dead on, because the average guy doesn't stand a chance. But when you have a business and you're making lots of money, everybody from Bank of America to the government wants you to join their team and be on the winning side and fuck the common man, It's the common guy who works the damn job in the factory and has family and kids and comes and goes simply that carries the brunt of America. Well, I am hot, sweaty, and bitchy. But this is just stuff that's so obvious. It's like, no, cops don't make more arrests when times are better. Oh, really? Yeah, they do, honey. It's like, some people are just so naive. Like one buddy of mine, what was that? He said, and I like this one, life is like a shit sandwich. The more bread you got, the less shit you got to eat.